Detective Ferraro, Dr. Alexander Harrison, B.A. Tulane University, Ph.D. New York University, Fulbright Scholar, vous lance le défi, issues you a challenge. Months before his violent, sudden death in a car crash on a rain-slicked highway in southern France in 1960, year I left for Paris. Albert Camus, author of L'étranger, La Peste, Minotaur, Le Mythe Sisyphe, the Franco-Algerian romancier, recorded the following in his diary. Je suis en retard sur toutes les choses. Like all great writers, Camus' observation can be understood on more than one level. What I meant was that one often realizes the consequences of one's actions only in retrospect. Camus' delay in getting things done struck a responsive chord, since I too have regrets about situations in which I dithered when actions and not tergiversation were called for. Sorrow and self-reproach were due to a failure to take positive actions on behalf of my family and our property, that paradise, whose loss I take the blame for, but not entirely. Regret number one, I did not help my parents in their declining years when they really needed my assistance. I should have remained with them, instead of working abroad to help maintain the house and preserve the property. Paradise lost, as in the words of Camus, tous les paradis en fin de compte sont perdus. I was the only member of the family who had finished college, B.A. Tulane University and Ph.D. New York University. I was guilty of being inconscient. Regret number two, I should have done a better job of defending myself when you, Detective Ferraro, called to threaten me on Emma Jacobone's behalf, informing me that since I dared to question your honesty as my real estate agent, you would have me arrested if I dared set foot in the state of New York again. An action which you would not have had the right to do as a police officer, but was a threat intended to intimidate. I'm a senior citizen with a serious heart condition, cardiomyopathy. You could have provoked a cardiac arrest. If I had been thinking on my feet, I would have riposted. Reminded you of the sanctity of the Bill of Rights, which protects all speech, even hate speech, and short of yelling fire in a crowded theater, is inviolable. Thanks to our Anglo-Saxon forebears, who bequeathed to us democratic liberties which all of us enjoy, this prerogative is unassailable. One could call one another un puto italiano, pendejo italiano, a dirty Welshman or an Irish pig. I can use the term in reference to the female sex from Cardiff as a Welsh tart, which many are, and I should know since I had a girlfriend from there. But I digress. If I question the integrity of Emma Jacobone as a real estate agent, the Bill of Rights protects my right to do so. As a police officer with the rank of detective, you should be aware the sanctity of free speech, and that called me at presumably Jacobone's request to threaten me. This is why I have challenged you to a word usage test, diction exam, which I will discuss further on. When I alluded to this in a conversation with Chief Salerno, with whose father I believe I was inducted into the armed forces at Whitehall in 1963, but that's another story. He condescendingly dismissed that eventuality in saying the police officers don't do that sort of thing. But such an exam, not done on work time, but off duty, and wager is $10,000 that you would not pass it. See below for details. Perhaps that sum seems like cambiamento di culo to someone who earns in the six figures, but the offer is out there nonetheless. Main point is that by calling to threaten me on a real estate agent's behalf, you abridged my civil rights. I did not appreciate the strain on my failing heart. La charmante Emma, vous eu. When you called, I thought Ferraro was a pseudonym, a name taken out of a hat, surname you will recall of our first female vice presidential candidate, Geraldine Ferraro, Mondale's running mate in 1984. But for all I knew, you could have been a distant relative of Joey Brancato, Sonny Francesi, Roy DeMeo, or Anthony Tony Provenzano, once next in line to succeed James Hoffa as head of the Teamsters Union, and probably would have had he not gone to Stony Lonesome for 15 years on RICO charges, plus for having thrown a rival down an elevator shaft. Check it out. Or you might have been an acquaintance of Louis Eppolito and Steve Caracappa, New York Police Department detectives who had a lethal sideline, being killers, hired killers for the mob, and who are now serving life. Did you know them? Police officers, detectives in particular, are a clannish group, feel most comfortable with each other. I would be interested in hearing your remembrances of them. Coincidentally, I'm from a civil service family myself, and cousin, retired from NYFD, a New York Fire Department, was a close friend of Pat Burns, outstanding detective, who coincidentally, whose shield was given on his retirement to the above-mentioned Louis Eppolito, hired killer for the mob. When Alexander Harrison regained his sang-froid, I concluded, while no longer questioning your legitimacy, that in calling me with the intention of intimidating me, you were merely returning a favor for a deal in a house which the real estate mogul Jacobone had arranged for you. One good turn deserved another. Non è vero? If that were the case, you should have withdrawn from the case, left it to another officer who had no ties to Emma. Explained to her that your detective's shield was too precious to be compromised. Your cardinal rule should be to never bully disabled senior citizens, especially if you are prowling for more career. I should have had a suitcase against you. I also wondered, in retrospect, why you would go to bat for a gypsy like Emma Jacobone. She dips, mugs people, not literally but figuratively. Picked up that term in a conversation with a denizen in one of the clubhouses, social clubs, one of which was located less than 5 minutes from where I lived on the Upper East Side. He told me at the time he was released from the hospital, was on the street when a car pulled up from which emerged a woman he had never seen, but who hugged him, asked him if he was all right, and got back into the car, which then sped off, which was still there, but a wad of bills was missing. The gypsy had mugged him. That describes Emma in a nut. Analogies are imperfect, but to sign a contract with an agent who was supposed to protect your interests, then appears to conspire with the adverse party in the final negotiations, for which transaction she does not even deign to appear, when terms of the sale could have been altered and renegotiated in my favor, is the equivalent of the gypsy who mugged my unsuspecting interlocutor on his release from the hospital. If perception is reality, my hunch, F. Scott Fitzgerald's favorite word, is that you had a commercial relationship with Signora Jacobone, which explains your intervention on her behalf. Regret number 3. Little to be said about Daniel Donatelli, attorney handpicked by Jacobone, except that he would not have been my choice, and was chosen by Emma Jacobone over my strenuous objections. My personal opinion is that he exhibited the same degree of venality as Jacobone with regard to Alexander Harrison. 2 Italians humiliating a wasp. No attorney could have done as much to his client, as much harm to his client as he. Donatelli will hear no hosannas from me regarding his personal and professional honesty. If immorality were an indictable offense, and if I were the judge, I would have sentenced Attorney Donatelli to a lifetime of cleaning out public WCs, public latrines. There is a precedent. John Profumo, minister for Harold Macmillan, resigned in disgrace and volunteered to clean out WCs in London's East End, which he did. Profumo was an aristocrat of Italian lineage. We are all products of our environment. Whether Emma traces her lineage to Naples, Calabria, Palermo, or South Brooklyn, one cannot escape the influence of one's roots. For all I know, she has familial links to Manu Neruda, Black Hand. More fool me for not examining her CV, or peigne fin, in which case I would have and should have chosen an agent who culturally I had more in common with. In any case, what follows is a sample exam which I would hope that you would take, to prove to me that you have a knowledge of the King's English commensurate with the rank that you have within the Port Washington Police Department. Just one more point. One of my favorite periods in history is the Quattrocento, and a historical actor whom I greatly admire is Garibaldi. Once again, dear Detective Ferraro, here is a sample exam similar to the one you would be asked to sit for in the event that you were to demonstrate stamina, courage moral, and agree to my proposition, my wager, which, as indicated above, is $10,000. If you make fewer than, disons, 10 mistakes, then you would win the wager. Beyond that number, you would owe me the sum of $10,000. Come on, son. Passage to be dissected is from A Bend in the River, a novel by V.S. Naipaul, born in Trinidad, educated in Great Britain, and considered by the critic, Irving Howe, as the finest writer in the Western world. Process goes like this. I would read the passage to you once, and you would listen. Then I would read it again, and you would write every word. The third reading would enable you to check, review what you have written. I would then ask you a series of questions, a half dozen in number, on grammar and elements of style. Getting cold feet on your part should not be on the agenda. So this is the excerpt in question. They wore civilian clothes, but they would have been a noticeable crowd anywhere. An ordinary bar crowd would have had some flabby types and would have been more mixed in age. These men were all in fine physical condition, and even the few gray-haired ones among them didn't look over 40. They could have passed for some kind of sports team. They sat in two distinct groups. One group was rougher looking, noisier, with a few flashy dressers. Two or three were very young, were pretending to be drunk and clowning. The men in the other group were graver, cleaner shaved, more educated in face, more conscious of their appearance. And you might have thought that the two groups had accidentally come together in the bar until you saw that they were all wearing the same kind of heavy brown boots. Questions. What are the contextual clues in the passage that tell you who these men are? List them. Compose a list of all the adjectives, adverbs, definite and indefinite articles in the passage. Given the struggles in post-independence Africa among centrifugal forces, each of which sought autonomy, why do you think the governments would seek hired soldiers, mainly white from Rhodesia and South Africa, rather than rely on their own national armies to keep their countries united? Number 4, write a précis of the passage in your own words, and tell me whether you think, based on this one excerpt from Naipaul's chef-d'oeuvre, whether his reputation as one of the best writers in the Western world is justified. This, then, is the sort of exam which I am willing to place the wager on. You may think that being asked by an ordinary citizen to go back to school and take an exam which the average high school English class student would have no difficulty acing is unprecedented. Then again, it is also unprecedented to call a handicapped senior citizen in order to intimidate him at have a hunch, the behest of Miss Jacobone, who was not content to humiliate me by failing to show up at the closing when terms of the sale could have been rewritten, but egged you on to call me and speak to me in a threatening manner. You have my coordinates, telephone number, and address. I invite you to get in touch with me to accept or decline the offer.